Hello everyone and welcome to the Constructive Criticism Network. This network is here to help you improve at Magic the Gathering at every level. From Pauper Leagues to Top 1000 Mythic, we've got you covered. If you want to hear the entire network, head on over to our sponsor at puremtgo.com, where you can hear each and every show, each and every week, and check out their sponsor, MTGO Traders, and tell them that the CCMTG Network sent you. Now sit back, enjoy the show. From YouTube, podcasts, and more, here's this week's episode from ConstructiveCriticism.com.
Hello everyone, welcome to the 314th episode of Constructed Criticism. I'm your host Mason, and this week I'm joined by a special guest host, the captain of Team Nova and PC competitor Drake Sasser. Drake, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, this is kind of awesome. You know, I've known you from before you were the Drake Sasser, and so now have you come on the podcast. It's kind of a cool roundabout circle, you know?
And landed on thick, aren't you, Mason? But yeah, we go back. It's been really cool to see you develop in the Magic community as well. I mean, you've definitely have some accomplishments under your belt to this point, so it's pretty sweet to watch as well.
Sure, that's fair. Yeah, we might get into that more later. And that's some of our point of the questions we're going to talk about. Because today we brought Drake on because, as I'm going to tell you here in just a little bit, Drake started playing Magic competitively, and correct me if I'm wrong, about 4 or 5 years ago. And went from like local Alabama events to, one of the stars of the SCG tour now, and really kind of went on the path that we know a lot of you kind of want to do, right? Where you want to start off going to IQs and stuff and playing opens, and Drake did it, and did it while being married and all of that. So we're going to talk about all of that today. It's going to be a really exciting episode because honestly, this isn't something I think you and I have ever really talked about,
Yeah, and it's not something that gets, I think, discussed super productively very often. Like a lot of people talk about their own success story, but I think a lot of the times that comes off as like a bunch of survivorship bias. And I think taking this opportunity to kind of talk about the active things you can be doing to, push yourself to that next level is something that is worth discussing, especially when it's actionable.
Yeah, 100%. Well, before we go any further, we do have to shout out our sponsor at Pure MTGO and Oasis Games. You can go to oasisgames.com and use code WouldThatBeGood to get 15% off your first order and CCMTG to get 4% off every order. Drake, that's 19% off. If you're going to buy a Pioneer deck like maybe Inverto or Breach, it's like a $300 deck. Now it's like, a lot more reasonable. It's like $240, $200, depending on, the quality of the cards and things you already have. And that's a huge savings. Like when I started playing Modern and I was a listener of this show, I bought Titan Shift. It was Titan Shift, and I got super cheap comparatively. So,
I mean, big Titan Shift fan. I mean, certainly if I was buying a full deck, I would definitely want to buy it at 19% off. That is insane.
Yeah, very, very happy to have them as a sponsor. And before we get into our main training, Drake, on this show, we like to talk about some way that we're always improving in life or Magic because we don't really want to be staying too still. We want to be trying to work on something. And this week, I took the classic of I have a 2-week break. I'm going to take some time off. And, starting tomorrow, I'm going to start really testing the Pioneer format. But I just relaxed, watched some Netflix, caught up on some K-dramas. Just wanted to make sure I'm not going so hard on Magic all the time that I burnt out.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I'm kind of in the same vein. I just came back from 2 weeks on the road, just came back from PT Phoenix. This week, I've been trying to take it a little easier, kind of have to start getting packed to move. I'm moving back to Huntsville from Coleman, Alabama, which is a short move, but still a move. And but I have listened to a few podcasts to improve in the meantime, just to kind of stay fresh, even if I'm not actively playing games.
Nice. What podcast were you listening to? What got the Drake Sasser attention? You gotta know.
Well, wow. I'm about to have to shill for other podcasts on a podcast.
We're all about everyone. There's enough room in the ocean for everybody.
All right. So I listened to the latest episode of the Arena Decklist podcast pretty recently, and I listened to the latest episode of Pioneer Cast with Ross Merriam and Tannen Grace.
I love that sports podcast. One of my favorite ones.
It's basically a sports podcast, right? I mean, I'm very close to both of those individuals. Love supporting their content, so. Definitely always going to give their cast a listen, even if it doesn't really stay on topic.
Yeah, I love to listen to the Pioneer podcast. I think they talk about a lot of great stuff. There's a lot of great information. Tannen and Ross are awesome. I'm also very appreciative of that one guy on Twitter who tweets the time at which the sports talk ends. And I normally jump to about 3 minutes before that so I can get into the rhythm. I get my 3 minutes of sports. I catch up on the Utah Jazz, and then we get into Pioneer. So
catch up. You're just like a Utah Jazz fan by proxy, just by listening to Ross's content.
Oh yeah, Ross will not. He loves the Utah Jazz, and then Spencer, former co-host of the show, loves the Utah Jazz. So like, I know a lot about them, having never seen them play.
Just having never interacted with them at all.
Oh yeah, if I was on a date and she was like, "I'm a big Utah Jazz fan," I could make it 2 to 3 minutes before I got exposed, like pretty easily. So
Oh, yeah, easy. Just keep up.
yeah, exactly. Well, that was awesome. I think it's great to listen to other podcasts. It's one of the big things for me. I'm always listening.
Yeah. It's very easy to do when traveling to Magic tournaments too, just to kind of get your mind in the right spot for the weekend too.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can't tell you how many times I've like the Thursday before, like the Friday going up to an event, I heard something like, "Oh, that is like so smart. I should be playing that sideboard card." And then you're running around the event hall the morning of.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like we're this might be a quick shift to dive in, but like, just to kind of switch gears for a second, like when you're on the road, like traveling to an event, a lot of people just kind of use that as downtime. Now, don't get me wrong, the carpool karaoke's and like, the sing-alongs and all the like, tuning of your deck in the car is all great stuff, but like you can actually use that time quite productively. I used to write my sideboard guides before I had to have them done way ahead of time. I used to write my sideboard guides in the car on the way, and I would just rattle off like, how would you guys sideboard against this? Or, how would y'all sideboard against, this stuff as me? Like, would you bring in these cards? Do you think they're going to bring these in these cards? And you just have hours to have this conversation about sideboard guides and like discuss all that out. And podcasts is another good thing you can do during that time. Just like use your time effectively. If there's a large block of time where you're just going to be stuck in a spot, use it productively.
Yeah, I actually love that. I always feel like you get that first 20, 30 minutes where everyone catches up on like the work week or whatever stress them, and then it's like, okay, but like I don't know how to sideboard versus hard scales, and like you kind of jump into it for the rest of the ride.
Yeah, it's a cool thing to discuss and just it makes the time pass real quick.
Yeah, and it's also a thing where like, we're both on Team Nova and we're like in chats and stuff like that. And sometimes things get brought up, right? But someone's at work. So like, today, like I was having a conversation with Anderson, but then I had to get busy and I had to come back to him 2 hours later, right? Mm-hmm. And so it can be kind of hard to have those conversations, but when you're in the car and no one's really going anywhere, like.
Yeah, exactly. They're stuck. They have to listen to you whether they want to or not. You can just bother them. Make them participate, force them into it, unless they got headphones in or something.
Yeah, that's when you know that you've gone too far, is when they pull out their headphones in the back, and you're like, all right.
And you can even take a break if you just like kind of get tired, like you've been discussing for a long time. Just like, all right, we'll finish the last few decks like later, and just like talk about other stuff. Maybe just chill and listen to music for a while. Like you can literally go at your own pace, but it's a block of time that you can just use.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think that's super important, and that kind of lets us kind of hop into our main topic here of Drake Sasser. We're talking about you this week. I just kind of want to know, give me like, how did we start playing Magic? Like what got you into the game?
So my parents were taught Magic by a friend of theirs that used to buy like, bunches of the new sets. So I learned with like mostly revised cards. And my parents taught me that like, the best mill strategy was to make them draw their whole deck and Library of Ling and that kind of thing. And then like I was taught with mana burn. If you forgot to untap your lands, they just didn't untap. That was a rule that they had. I don't know if that was ever actually in the rules, but that was how I learned to play.
Your parents are so cutthroat.
It was cutthroat out there, I tell you. My parents, they were serious about looking up the rules too. If like I was like, I'm not sure how this works, they would like argue, and they would argue their side, and they'd make me present my side. I'm like, we could just look this up in the rules. They're like, okay, go do it then, since it's your card. It's like, geez. I'll tell you, my parents are cutthroats in games. It's probably why I'm so competitive, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot about how we got from F&M to the PC real quick, and it all happened in the 1 minute. So I think we can jump to the sign off here. Drake, no, but
have ruthless parents. There you go.
Oh my goodness, I can imagine like, if like my dad doesn't play, but he was big into chess, and he would definitely punish me on my mistakes and wouldn't let me take them back. But I can't imagine him not letting me untap mana if we played Magic. That's just so cutthroat. Like, you skipped it.
I'm sorry you forgot to untap your stuff. It's like that happens. It's just a thing. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you call Judge and Dad comes over and it's like, listen to your mother.
Yeah, right. Just a beat. You get no help.
So that's awesome. I mean, like that your parents and you played. So were you young when that was happening? Like what age were you during all this?
Yeah, this was, God, I think this is probably around 2005. I started buying my own Magic cards around 8th edition, but I bought my own cards not long after learning. I was one of those kids that like kind of made the transition. Like I did some like Pokemon card stuff, never really played the game. I was just really young and collected them because they look cool. And then I got into Yu-Gi-Oh, at which point I like started actually playing the game in addition to collecting the cards. And like Yu-Gi-Oh was really big when we were young, and so like that was cool. But as people began to kind of phase out Yu-Gi-Oh, and like there was some overlap there as well, because like it's, I don't know, it was like, I don't know, fifth-ish grade for me. I learned Magic because my parents were like, okay, you seem to like these card games. Here's this one that we know how to play, but it's like a little more complicated. And so that was kind of what sparked my interest. And then I like started buying cards just kind of casually here and then when I had like money and wanted to like try to upgrade my deck to beat my parents because I was tired of them beating up on me. It's like, I'm going to buy some cards. I'm going to beat them up. And so, yeah, just like I was obviously very, very casual. Didn't even really have a great grasp on how the rules worked at the current time frame. And yeah, I mean, I played casually for a long stretch of time, probably longer than I feel like most Magic players play before they like start encountering the competitive scene, right?
Yeah. So when did you start? Like, when did you go to your first like F&M and things like that?
If I remember correctly, my first F&M was a New Phyrexia draft F&M. We had like 8 people there or whatever at a really small local game store. So I don't know. What's the release date on New Phyrexia? Is it like
11, I think.
11 sounds right. So there you go. It's like a 6 years after I learned to play Magic that I was like finally like got up enough nerve to be like, all right, I guess let's interact with this competitive scene. Let's just see what it's like, because you know that's, I mean, it's something I'm moderately interested in. I kind of want to get better, and like I've gotten to the point now, like in 2011, where I was just beating up my parents all the time, so that kind of lost its luster. It's like, all right, let's find the next fish in the sea, right? Let's take it to the next level. And at that time, that was F&M, and I, you know, went to F&M, had kind of no idea what was going on. I distinctly remember passing a Spellskite, my first pack I opened. Like I was super nervous. I read it and I was like, what is this? What is this rare? I don't even know what this does. And I passed it and somebody's like, you know, this card's like $20, right? And I was like, no. Oops.
That's gas. That's really awesome.
So there you go. There's a nice memory from my very first F&M. So yeah, like so it was a slow movement, I guess, from casual to F&M. But I mean, I played F&Ms for a long time and didn't even, I mean, I hit my first PTQ around like the first time there was modern PTQs was the first time I was like, all right, like I'm actually going to like try getting really competitive at this and not just like, okay, I'll play F&Ms every now and again and like whatever, that's just what I'm doing. Like around that time, me and my friend Michael Kidd got really into modern because it was an eternal format, so we didn't have to keep putting money into standard. It sounded great. And PC Born of the Gods just happened, so I went and played an original PTQ for modern with good old trusty Jeskai control. So that was those are kind of the dates. I think PT Born of the Gods, I mean, you can like look up the dates on that as well. I think that's like 2014. So about 3 years after I started playing F&Ms, I decided to like play my first comp REL event.
Yeah, that sounds about right on the time for all that, for like the release event. You see, I'm not surprised to hear Michael Kidd playing during the Jund era at all. I see now how the trajectory got here. That's a deep cut for everyone that knows Michael. But so, so you kind of, you know, you went through this, like, as you even said, like longer than the normal process. I feel like people, especially like people that are really spiky, they very quickly will go out and seek competition. But you kind of had this slower roll. Do you see yourself as like a spiky person? Or like, how do you like, you know, like Spike, Timmy, Johnny, like where do you see yourself?
I'm definitely a spike. Like when I'm doing something, I just like have the immediate desire to be the best at it. It's like, all right, I want to be the best I can possibly be, right? But like I only really like I understand I can't do that with absolutely everything. So I really only focus on one thing at a time. And so at the time I was just like, you know, I was in school, I was like playing football, like it just did, like my time was really taxed. And so I didn't really have the time to do much of anything. I also played a bunch of like video games in high school, like most high schoolers did my age. So like Magic was the thing I very much like kept in the casual space. Like I wasn't actively trying to get better, like in any meaningful way for basically the entire time I was a casual. Like obviously I wanted to beat my parents, but like that mostly to me involved just like maybe playing a little bit more and getting some better cards because like they definitely don't play at like a high level or anything.
Yeah.
And so like that didn't really require a large amount of effort for me. And so there's something I just did just to like, you know, just to like do. It was like another thing to do that I could interact with like with my parents and like have this thing that we share. But like there was a point in time which I was like, you know what, this Magic game, like I really enjoy Magic and like I would like to see what the competition even looks like. And that was kind of the goal of my first F&M is like, what does competitive Magic even look like? And that was like putting the feelers out to see if this was something I wanted to put a lot of effort into to getting really good at.
Awesome. Well, So we kind of know about your first PTQ, and I want to kind of skip some time, love an abbreviated version of this, of how we went from there to you were on, I believe it was called Team Supreme for a
Yeah.
little bit, and then you won an open, and then you started going to like all the opens. And what did that look like, and what was kind of the whole thought process from like grinding PTQs and playing local events to I'm going to go play these SCGs to winning an SCG?
So yeah, like I grinded some PTQs. I was like sold on this Pro Tour dream. When they transitioned into PPTQs, I like started doing that. I won one, played my first RPTQ. It was like a sealed event. I scrubbed out, realized I hated limited, and was like kind of just off competitive Magic at that point. Like I was just very disenchanted with it. The PPTQ circuit burned me out really quick because nothing mattered but winning. Like top aiding PPTQs was nigh meaningless. The payout was miserable and it took your whole day. And like even still, there was like hour to 3 hour drives to each one. It was just like kind of an awful experience. I just hated it. And I was like, oh, this sucks. And then my friend Zachary Cuck got me into Legacy and was like, hey, like, we should go to this Legacy Open. It's like kind of a long drive, but it's drivable. And I was like, all right, like the SCGs, those are kind of big. All right, sure. Like I had played a few GPs or whatever, not done especially well, but like even still, like I didn't play a lot of very, very large tournaments. I think I'd played like one or two to that date. So I went, played, I think it was SCG Open in Washington, D.C., kind of scrubbed out. But it was like, all right, like I kind of fell in love with the scene. I was like, these people like take it very seriously. You show up, like all these events are very close to me, and top aiding them like matters. Like you get a lot of publicity. The SCG coverage is very watchable. I've watched multiple SCG events. So like coverage is good. They seem to sell their players well. Top aiding matters. This seems like a nice change of pace from like grinding PPTQs or whatever. So that's kind of when I like began to like set my sights on SCGs, but I was still in college. So I still was only playing, a few a semester or whatever. And so to fast forward, I graduated college and then decided I was like, okay, now I have the time, I have the money. I'm going to commit all my time or like, a vast majority of my time to like getting to like the level I want to be at in Magic. And so I started like, I tossed myself in, I dived in, and I had all of this like past experience to like build on. But like, I mean, seriously, from the time I graduated college to the time of winning Worcester was like a period of like 3 or 4 months. It was like the relief that came with graduating college and the like that stress removal from my life really kind of felt like it unchained me as a player. Like I had time to do what I wanted to do and to focus on what I wanted to be doing.
Have you heard of the theory of two?
I have not.
So this is the thing I've heard from some fighting game players where they believe you can only do like 2 things great at any one time. So like you could be like a great worker and a great Magic player, or you could be like a great student and a great husband, but you can't do the third thing. Like something has to give at a certain point, and that like people can only divide their attention so much, and before that it starts to slip. And I kind of hear that in your story as well, where it's like as soon as you didn't have to worry about college anymore, it's like you got this free up thing, and then like it became so much easier because it's just like not another thing you have to balance, right? Like I was in your spot too, where like you play a GP or whatever, and you're like, oh, I got to get back to finish this paper or whatever, or to cram for this test,
Yeah, like you spend all week studying instead of testing Magic, and so that way you like don't fail your test, and you go, you're not prepared, you don't have the cards you need because you're in college, you're kind of broke, and so like there was a lot of factors holding me back. And I mean, I even in college I saw the difference between like the times I was just co-oping and working for a semester and the times I was in college. Because the times I was actually in class, like I was so much more stressed. I just did so much worse in all of my Magic events. Whereas the times I did well in Magic events, or at least a lot better, I was cashing, I was like top aiding some stuff, like smaller stuff, but still, was the times that I was working. Like I was just like going to this job every day and that's all I had to worry about. And like I was a lot less stressed, and it showed. Like it came out in my Magic that I could play a lot better. And I had, like you said, like I had the capacity to kind of take all of that on.
Yeah. And so we kind of talked about this at the beginning of the show, and we're kind of alluding to it now. But Drake, how do you manage like you're currently married, with your wife, and you work a job and you grind the open, and you technically have like a second job, right? I mean, like last year, making a run at the PC race is essentially a job. Like you need to test a reasonable amount, you need to go and play all these opens and do all this kind of stuff. And at least from the outside, for me, you didn't take like a lot of Mondays off. You did a lot of like Saturday, Sunday, come back to work. How do you balance all that? That's just so much.
I mean, it's obviously a lot of work, right? Like it is very much like you said, it is like balancing 2 jobs. So like there are weekends that like, where you would have to just like go immediately from work to like driving 7 to 8 hours to an event to like playing the event and then driving back that Sunday, right? And going to work on Monday. And like that is fine. It's feasible, not comfy. It's very exhausting, but like you need to do a lot of coordination, especially, if you have a partner, like my wonderful, very patient wife who puts up with all this travel. I mean, she's in med school, so she does like some amount of like studying on her own. Like she's not like I'm just like spewing this time with her and I spend most of my weekends off with her. But like that is something you have to juggle, is you have to be like communicate with the people in your life and be like, hey, you still mean a lot to me. But I'm doing a lot right now. Like I am I'm going to work, I'm producing content, I am driving to these events, which takes a lot of time, and playing these events, which takes a lot of time, and I have to prepare for these events, which takes a lot of time. And so you just have to be, you have to be very organized. And that's something that certainly the more events back to back I had to play, it began to slip a little bit because things would start not getting done around the house and I'd have to like catch up later. Right. So it's definitely, I'm not going to make it out to be like, it's just something easy that I can gracefully juggle. It is a lot of work. But if you have good like time management skills and you have good communication skills with the people in your life, I think you can make it happen with most low stress, like 9 to 5 jobs. Like you could do this grind if that is something you want to do, but it takes a commitment. You have to be willing to put in a second job's worth of time and be organized enough to like make sure your life doesn't fall apart in order to just kind of to make this happen and make it happen in a healthy way.
I really like that. I think it's a great, clean answer. And it kind of leads me to my next question I have for you. Because I've heard you mention now, like, if this is the grind you want to pursue, and like you mentioned SCG, like promoting their players and stuff like that, is that something that's really enticing to you about like not only the SCG tour, but making the grind for the PC, is like that kind, everything that comes along with that? Because I'm curious about what motivates you to go out and play competitive Magic. Like for me, the goal is to push myself and just something that I do and see how good I can become at something, right? So I need to find people that are also have motivations that are going to make them want to play as best they can, right? And the PC and the money and stuff like that is a great motivator for SCG, especially compared to last year at the GP, which, oh Lord only knows what was going on.
Oh yeah,
but
for sure.
But what motivates you? Like what's making you really want to go out and play all these events?
Honestly, it's a lot of like personal challenge where like I guess it is similar to you in that I wanna see how far I can push myself. I generally hold the opinion that people in general can push themselves harder than they even think they can. Like whatever you think your limit is, you can push it harder. And so like that's basically what I did is like I set my first goal to top 8 and open, and then I ended up winning one. I was like, well, there went my second goal. And so I was like, all right, whatever. Let's try to make it on the leaderboard. Like I set these goals almost on the fly as I was hitting them and just like kept clearing them. And so like it was very natural when like the PC came back that I was like, all right, that's something that like I got to watch that race happen in 2016, but I didn't get to be a part of it because I was in college. This time I'm going to make a run for it, right? Like I want to see if I can push myself and make it to the PC. Like is this something I can do? Which I'm not necessarily confident that mentality is actually very healthy. Like I think going into the beginning of 2019, my only goal for the year was like, can I make the PC? And that led to some mental health issues down the line that we can discuss, I guess, a little bit later. But yeah, like setting this goal that had this very discrete result, I think is not actually the most healthy way to engage with the game. I think a lot of the times, like the way you're kind of approaching, where you're just like, you're trying to get better, you're trying to push yourself, just make sure that you're improving. Like that is something that is much healthier, much more sustainable. Whereas setting these hard goals can create a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, and can create some issues as you like perceive yourself slipping from that goal or whatever. You want to make reachable goals, and you also want to make goals like, especially with Magic, that aren't just like related to an exact position. So like just winning an event, that's not actually a very good goal because it takes a lot of luck, right?
Yeah, Magic tournaments breed losers, right? Like exactly. When you go to an event, one person out of like normally a minimum of 300 people, like most opens are at least that big, get there. Mm-hmm. That's like less than 1% of the people win, right? Like, yep. It's crazy. And even less than that top 8. So even if that's your goal, that's still like such a hard goal to reach and overcome. But let's talk about this a little bit here because we're about to transition to that anyways. But so let's just not have to circle back. You talked about some stuff when it comes to mental health, etc. And I know that when I started to really interact with you more was during the end of season 2 of the Player Championship race. And at that point, it was kind of more just like needing you to check off the things, especially after the win. with Storm. But before that, you had a little bit of issues, right, when it came to balancing that. Did you how much? I don't know how much you want to delve into that. Of course, it's all up to you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a mental health podcast, but it is so important that it would truly be a crime not to talk about it. Mental health is honestly the biggest thing that matters for the PC race. And I was especially lucky because, I was already on the first iteration of Nova at the beginning of 2019. I had some PC competitors in my ear telling me look, this is really hard. And especially Brad Carpenter was he would tell me every time, he's like, look, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So just focus, show up, just make sure you're playing, a good deck every weekend and just a series of 11-4s and you'll probably make it. I mean, you'll probably need to spike at some point, but you just have to hope that happens.
I've told a bunch of people that. It's so funny. Sorry, keep talking. I was having that conversation with someone last night.
And so I had this in my ear at the start. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna stay level-headed. I'm gonna keep my cool. I'm just gonna show up, play my best Magic, and that's what I'm gonna do. And so that's what I did in season 1, and I was very successful. I had a very good season 1, all told. I ended up with 2 top 8s that didn't come till late in the season, but I didn't let it shake me too much. I was at the end of the season, all right, well, we haven't had a great season, but we've gotten a lot of points for having no top 8s, and then rattled off I don't know if it was back to back, but I think there was an open in the middle. But in the last 3 opens, I top 8'd 2 of them. And I was like, all right, now we're doing it,
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt really good at the end of season 1. And, I was very lucky to have a lot of people in my ear. And I personally value mental health a lot. So it was something I was looking up content on. I was really actively trying to be self-aware on. It's something that I respect a lot and was taken very seriously. But even still, in the middle of season 2, something kind of happened. And I had a really heartbreaking win in that I lost. There was a win in a top 8 at a team tournament, right? And I was the decider. It was a win in. I made this call that I thought was correct, but I let my teammates talk me out of it, and it ended up losing. And I just it kind of crushed me. It shook me a little bit. And then from then on, I just was off beat. I had a streak of pretty bad events, and then that led into this I think it was SCG Dallas right after the Unbanned Stoneforge Mystic and Chase the Mind Sculptor that I just bombed the event. I had a great deck for the tournament. Ross Merriam ended up top 8ing with Titan Shift, and it was very similar to the list that I had been testing with and had put out and ended up playing. But I directly punted my winning into day 2. I was just not on my game at all. And I was in the worst spot mentally. I was taking losses really hard. I was tilting and really trying to keep it all under control. And I just couldn't. I was shocked. I was like, look, I take mental health so seriously. Why am I being hit like this? What happened? What changed? And so I got to talking with Harlan, which, love that man to death. He's done so much for me. And he, honestly, I don't think I would have made the PC without him. And Zach Allen, I started working with them going into SCG Syracuse, which is the legacy event. And Harlan just talked to me through a lot of mental stuff. And I trusted Harlan because he's somebody that in 2016 did the PC race and missed, right? He's somebody that had gone for it and not actually gotten there. And so that meant a lot to me. I have a lot of respect for this person that has gone through exactly what I've been through before and actually ended up not getting there ultimately, which was the big dread. And so, I just listened to him, he's now bouncing back. He's crushing events. And
yeah, he just top 4s all the events. They just kind of
he
walk him in there and he starts playing what matters,
He's unlocked his potential. Is just murdering every event now. He just can't lose. But no, seriously, he kind of helped talk me through some of the issues I was having. And after talking to him, I kind of realized what the problem was. And the problem was I was looking at the leaderboard too much. I was looking at this SCG leaderboard every single week, almost obsessively, just trying to figure out where I was, what's happening, what do I need to happen on the points. I was obsessing over this leaderboard and this number tied to my name because I'd had such a good season 1. It was kind of a confidence boost in season 1. I was always going up on the leaderboard, not down, and I felt really good about it. But season 2, when I started to slip a little bit, it became a slippery slope. It's oh no, I slipped a few spots. Now I need to do this well. And then you do badly. And then that affects your mental health worse. And so I realized it was just it was kind of toxic for my mentality to be looking at this leaderboard as much and obsessing over the numbers. And so I told myself look, even though making the PC is your only goal, I will not look at the leaderboard until the entire race is over. Just never, not at all. I will completely avoid it. And that was the big like actionable step I took to remove this thing that was causing me like damage to my mental health out, just cut it out entirely. And I mean, it was literally like a magic trick. I literally went from, as soon as I started working with Harlan and Zach, I stopped looking at the leaderboard. I went from top 16 to the next tournament. Then I top 4 the tournament, teaming with them. And then I went on to win Indy. And then I got like 9th at Atlanta and like scrubbed out of the PC, but it didn't matter. I mean, not the PC, the Indy. So like, you know, is literally, you can see this complete like valley where like I reached this like complete low in Dallas where I was just getting crushed. I went from like back-to-back nearly midpoint weekends to immediately on the up and up, hitting top 16, top 4, win the tournament. And I attribute that almost entirely to my mental health and the improvements I made to that and the help that I got from Harlan and Zach and working with them.
Yeah, it really does show how like important this stuff we talk about is, right? Like obsessing over the results and like, you know, whether that goal is like the players championship or top 8ing it, when you're thinking about that so much, it just takes away from like your energy, etc. And also like if anything goes south, right? Like you can compare like one bad open to the equivalent of losing a round in a tournament, right? Like there are 15 rounds in a tournament, there are 15 opens in a season or whatever. It's like one bad tournament, one bad round that can really affect you if you're so focused on that. But if the goal is the process and everything and like playing the best you can and preparing the best you can, then it's a big difference maker.
When my goal for a weekend went from a certain point amount to playing the best Magic I can, I started actually playing the best Magic I can, even because the point amounts are arbitrary. Like I don't have direct control over how many points I get in a given weekend. I do have direct control over me and the Magic that I'm playing. And so when I shift that focus to just playing the best I can, showing up as prepared as I can be, playing the best I can, the difference was like phenomenal. And it's still so hard to keep sight of. Like even this last PC I was hit, and I'm sorry, this last PT, so many acronyms, this last in Player Store Phoenix, like when I got kicked out of the tournament, it was pretty early on. I kind of scrubbed out of that tournament. It hit me pretty hard. And I was like, wow, like this feels a lot like I felt after the that Dallas event last year where I just don't feel good at all. And I realized it's because like I put a lot of pressure on myself to play my first PT and like do well. I felt like I had something to prove coming from the SCG circuit. And so I just put a bunch of pressure on myself. And like, I think it ended up affecting the match I played that kicked me out of the tournament. I started getting behind and kind of went on this like tilt thing. And I was like trying to keep it under control, but it was really, really hard. It was a battle. And I still battle with mental health issues like that in tournaments where it's just like I put pressure on myself. It's not healthy. And it's something I have to battle through. And I think all Magic players experience that. And I think a lot of what separates the players that end up making the Players Championship and the players that end up falling a little bit short is the ones that can keep it together. And that is really what's meant by, it's a marathon, not a race. Don't get burnt out, because the biggest battle is actually just your mental battle.
Yeah, so, 100%.
That's my spiel.
Well, I think it's an important spiel too, and you can derive a lot from it. Like when I hear that, it kind of confirms this kind of thought I've had where it's like, well, if your goal is to make the Players Championship, then you're going to need to play the best Magic you can all the time, right? Mm-hmm. You just basically have to do that for 29 events or whatever, right? Like if you count opens, invitationals, and regionals, you have like 29 to play. And that's a lot of them, and you're going to have bad ones. But if you think you can make the Players Championship and you think you're good enough to, then you need to play good Magic all the time. So what's the only thing you should care about? You should only care about playing the best Magic you can, because you should be trying to do the best you can that whole way and get better, so that when you reach that like goal or that mountain at the end, whether that's the Pro Tour, the Player Championship, whatever it is, you're there and you can compete because you've done this thing. You've overcome this like huge mountain, right? And then you're playing against 15 other people who also overcame this huge mountain, these huge obstacles. And so, I think it's just really telling that like, stop worrying so much about how people are going to view you, and stop tying your success to like your last event, and care much more about like the long-term thing, right? One of the things I hear when you talk about this is it's kind of like your season 1 is essentially like you did well at a couple of local events and you feel really strong, right? And then you like lose an F&M or whatever, and suddenly like your life's over and you're only as good as your last result. And I think that's a thing that happens a lot in Magic, is we tie our self-image to our results, and in reality, it's just not how things work in Magic. So
People want Magic to work like a level up. The first time you top eight an open, now you're suddenly talented enough to top eight an open, and you should top eight every open if you try, right? Like if you put effort in, you will top eight because that's the level you're at, right? And that's not how that works. Like leveling up in Magic doesn't mean that you're just now consistently going to get the like this good result over and over. It means that you have obviously have the capacity to because you did it once, but like there's a lot of factors that go into top eighting an event, and you may be actually still very bad at some factors, but very good at others. And, what is stressed at that particular event changes from weekend to weekend. And so you definitely need to pull back. I mean, this is talked about ad nauseum in Magic about like not tying yourself to your results and, like not tying yourself to this number. Like, you need to definitely separate yourself and your self-worth from your Magic results. But a lot of times it gets parroted by people that are very successful in Magic, right? So it's like, okay, easy for you to say, like, you've crushed a bunch of tournaments. Well, like I'm a nobody that's really just trying to make a name for myself. It's like, yes, but like the more you focus on that aspect, the more you're kind of pushing yourself away from your goals, because you have to show up, you have to focus on learning, and you have to play your best Magic, because as soon as you stop caring about the results is when you start getting the results. It's a sick paradox, but I promise it's how it works. I mean, Harlan proves it every single weekend. He's somebody that he doesn't actually really care that much if he scrubs out of a tournament or wins the tournament. He just shows up, he comes to play, and he's going to play his best Magic that he can. And I mean, the man's results speak to his own philosophy, and I'm here to definitely parrot it because he did a lot for me as well. So.
Yeah, Dilks is the same way, right? He just plays Call of Duty 9 to 5, and then plays Magic, and then goes back to playing Call of Duty and comes back to the next weekend.
So, yeah, whenever he shows up to have a good time, if he scrubs out, well, that sucks. But
one day he'll learn what that's like. I don't think he knows yet, but
yeah, I don't think somebody should introduce some blues to him. Although I don't know if
yeah, maybe he can't handle it. Maybe he just never learned. But you see that same thing now. We're just gonna say this and move on here, but like PV had the same thing happen on the pro level. He went from playing in Worlds to being a platinum pro to like being silver, almost dropping out of silver for like 2 years in a row. And PV is one of the best Magic players of all time. So it's not just like, oh, well, once you get 2 PT top 8s, you're suddenly just like locking in top 64 at every pro tour. That's just not how it works. So,
I mean, he's somebody that's very open about the fact he doesn't have good mental health. I don't know if he's doing anything to fix it, because he just seems to be like kind of content with that's where things are at. But
I think he's done a lot, and that's why his results have improved so much in the last 2 years.
I would definitely buy that. But like he's spoken to it multiple times on Twitter and on the podcast about how he thinks that's like one of the weakest parts of his game, and that he does tilt a lot. And like, I think that just goes to show that this is something that is important across every single level in Magic. If you're a casual player, like I've seen plenty of tilt and casual players. If you're an F&M player, I've seen a bunch there. Like every single level has a bunch of tilt and like a bunch of like, mental health struggles that you definitely have to be self-aware of and kind of actually act against, because it is an important aspect of this game.
Yeah, we're all people. We're just working on it.
Right.
Well, now that we've talked about, how it's important to set healthy goals and do that kind of stuff, Drake, what is your goal for 2020 going forward? Where are we at?
This is something that's a little flexible. So I knew that I didn't want to play every single open again.
You don't want to dedicate your whole life to this?
Yeah. Last year I played every single open with the intent of playing the PC, like I had mentioned. I realized that was an insane draw in my life, and I wanted some of my life back. So one of my goals for this year was to get a better life Magic balance. Like I chose to skip an open to go skiing with a few of my friends. I skipped another open to go play the PT, which I mean is another Magic event, but still I'm not just all in hard focused on the PC, but I do plan on playing a bunch of opens. So I would like to play my best Magic at the opens. And if I end up making the PC, that's great, but that is not my direct goal. I would like to have learned something from my experience last year. So my goals for this year is to make my best attempt to qualify for all the regional PTs and to play my best Magic on the SCG tour and, get a better life Magic balance. Those are actually my goals for right now. If I do want to kind of begin to make a look at Rivals League, and maybe if that leads to MPL, I see that being a long journey, but I don't understand the organized play structure that well, and to even know what making a run at Rivals actually would even entail. And so right now I'm kind of just trying to play it a little light and just try to play all the RPTs, get a feel for what that is, maybe get a little bit better at limited, and just kind of dip my toes in the organized play from Wizards of the Coast, and just kind of see as they figure it out, I can figure it out, and maybe eventually I'll set my sights on that. But for the moment, I'm kind of trying to do both. I'm trying to do some SCG stuff, I'm trying to do the RPTs, and I'm trying to do a little bit more live stuff. So my goals for this year are a little up in the air. Just kind of trying to become a better content creator is also somewhere mixed in, but I think we can manage multiple at the same time, right?
Sure, I believe in you. You're already queued for like the next RPT, right? Because
I am not.
Did Knoxville not count for that?
No, I had to win my my semifinals match in Knoxville, and I did not.
Oh,
it's
my
the
bad.
two finalists. I didn't make the finals.
Oh,
Yeah, I wish I had to win it into the PT, but I missed.
Oh, wow, that's a pretty big PTQ to miss on too. Oh,
yeah,
beats.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. But I mean, hey, like if we got a few more shots at it, and I can always hit like an actual PTQ if I decide to start getting desperate. I mean, it's really close. This PT is in Charlotte, which is really close to me. So I may just drive up, play some LCQs if I miss, hang out if I completely miss.
Sure, that's fair. I would suggest getting on a team with Harlan, and then you're basically locked up for the winning into top 4, and then figure it out from there. And I'm sure you guys are lining it back up again, so I'm sure we're gonna see you there.
We'll see what's up. We'll see what's up. We'll try to convince Harlan to team with me once he's done winning trophies with Zach Allen and Dan.
Yeah. I would suggest Dilks as well, but I don't think you can break up the amulet. You got to learn the other Titan deck if you're gonna do that. That's a lot of work, So
yeah, that's probably too tall of an ask.
That's fair. Well, let's go into some questions from the listener. So if you were a patron of the show, and we even reached out for Twitter, took one there, we asked some questions from them to ask Drake. So Drake, are you ready?
I am always ready.
All right. Adrian Carr says, what are some of your biggest level up moments as a player, and what were the level up moments as far as MTG mental health goes?
So I talked a little bit about mental health. It's always been something that's been a fascinating topic to me because I think it was under talked about. So like, I guess a level up moment for me was realizing it was important and seeking out content on it. Some of the stuff that got me into it was some of Will Jonathan's stuff. Like he wrote a few articles that kind of like breached on a topic I was interested in. Craig Wesco wrote an article about like trying to break out many moons ago that like got me interested. And so like kind of as far as mental health goes, the biggest level up was realizing it was important. And that's something that a lot of people actually still haven't hit. Like that kind of sounds like a joke, but like there are a lot of like aspiring Magic players that just kind of say, yeah, like not tilting, that's important. Yeah. But mental health goes deeper than that. It goes into your preparation. It goes into even like consuming food during the tournament. Like I wrote, my very first article I ever wrote was like, I think it was like 5 ways to like sustain mental stamina at a tournament.
Number 4,
and like it was about that kind of stuff. Huh?
Number 4, blow your mind. That should have been the tagline.
Yeah, right. I should have got that clickbait title. Exactly. No, I'm not about that clickbait stuff. My articles are pure, honest titles.
And you can get those by going to patreon.com/NovaMTG. I'm sorry, continue.
Get all your advice there. Yeah, and so like that was actually like an article I wrote that was like designed to be like, hey, here's some of the small things I did that leveled me up a lot. It was like kind of, and all of it is mental health focused. Like one of them was writing sideboard guides. It's like, well, how is that related to mental health? Well, you're taking mental strain off of you during the tournament. Like you having to think about sideboarding and having to think about, oh, did I get that card yet? Or, you're flipping through your deck, just trying to remember everything. That's like mental strain that you're putting on yourself that you don't have to. Like you literally can write all of this down, have it all pre-thought about, pre-sorted out, and just adjust to whatever you wrote down on the fly. But you're starting from this base where it's already, you front loaded all of the mental work. And like, you just have to have it on the sheet of paper. Like if somebody did this to you and it wasn't legal, you'd be freaking out because you'd be like, dude, this person's cheating. Look at this advantage they're getting. And then yet still people forego writing out sideboard guides. You're like, oh, I'll remember or whatever. It's like, why are you unnecessarily taxing your mental?
There's this huge
capacity.
Peace of mind, right? Where you're down a game or whatever, and you don't have to think about what am I going to do to beat, this Phoenix player. You just pull up your sideboard guide and you're like,
I can literally just like,
this.
I'm following numbers on my paper and I'm thinking about the range of hands I'm going to keep for the next game because of the circumstances and what their configuration looks like. And like, if anything that's different from the sideboard guide, I often write notes. I'll sometimes have a sample sideboard from their deck. Like you can give yourself so many edges in the mental department just by writing on a sideboard guide. And so like, that's like one of those things that like was a big level up moment for me, was realizing that, hey, like take some of this off me and like, don't try to just, bored on the fly. And then like, you know, eating during a tournament, I would always end up hungry and I begin zoning out around 6 or 7. Like now I eat a granola bar every 3 rounds. I make sure to like keep up with the amount of water I'm intaking. There's like so much you can do to kind of help make sure your body stays performing during a tournament that like has a direct impact on your mental health, that I was just like, whatever. When I first started playing opens, I was like, whatever, I'll just eat afterwards. Like, it's fine. I can push through. It's like, no, yeah, you can, but you're going to play bad Magic. Like, you know, take care of yourself, take care of your body. And so that was a big one for me. And then the second biggest level up, and I think this is kind of just great advice in general, is putting less emphasis on just jamming games to get better at a format or a deck, and like focusing more on content. I think that was a big level up moment for me, was being able to supplement a lot of direct testing with consuming content from players better than me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that is very, very underplayed. People love just jamming games, like clicking play league over and over and over again, just jamming with a deck. And there's just such huge diminishing returns with that, especially if you're not playing with like this like process oriented mindset. When I play a league, I'm playing the league with a goal, like a very finite, discrete goal. I'm going to say, hey, like I'm playing this league to see if, you know, this subset of like this main deck configuration is, you know, functional. Or to see if like this sideboard has like setups in all of the matchups that I want. Like I'm testing to see how a deck plays out, or how a subset of cards play out, or like whatever. Or I'm testing to just see how powerful the deck is. Like I don't actually know. People are talking about this deck being great. I want to see for myself. Like I'm going to play it through a league and see how well I do. If I don't know what's going on and I'm beating people anyway, deck's probably really good. If I know what's going on and I feel like I'm playing pretty well, close to optimally, maybe making a few mistakes, but I'm getting crushed, maybe the deck's not that powerful. Just like get more out of your leagues. Stop paying attention to the results of your leagues. Start paying attention to how the games play out, and have a goal for all of the games you play, all the matches you play. Get something out of them. And that's something I don't think a lot of people do. They just like jam matches to jam matches.
I love what you just said. I don't want to harp on everything that we're talking about here, because, you know, we got lives to live or whatever, but that is so big to me. And that was like a huge level up moment for me, was realizing that like jamming these games isn't really doing anything, and it's like not helpful. And if anything, it can be harmful, because you can start practicing like bad habits if you're approaching a matchup like quote unquote the wrong way, right? Like if you think the matchup is about X and you play these games and you do this thing, and Magic is a game with enough variance, and maybe you're just better than your opponent, your random, you know, person on Moto or Arena, and you just beat them a bunch, and you go to the Open, you sit down, you know, you play against like Drake Sasser or Matt Dilks or Edgar Magalhaes, and they just like trounce you, right? It's because they talked with these other people who had this idea of what the matchup's actually about, and having these conversations is a huge thing. You know, last week on the show, I talked about how talking to like Dom and VTCLA about Pioneer taught me more about Pioneer than playing like all the Pioneer up to that point had, right? Like I needed to play there that had that conversation with them, but seeing how they approached Inverter and Sultai and like Breach and everything like that was a huge like paradigm shift. Like the way I thought about things has changed a lot, and that's like a huge moment. So you can have that, and it's called all these podcasts and content, right? Like you can go listen to Pioneer Cast and Arena Deck List and, you know, Constructed Criticism. You can go become a patron of Nova, you know, like you can do all these things. So I think that's a huge one. And I think what happens a lot of times, because I've had people actually tell me this, like, hey, do you actually think that? Is people think we're shilling when we say that, right? Because like we make content. But the truth is like, no, like this is like, I don't know how to tell you this. Like, yes, like maybe we make something off of this in the process, but I think it's like really important, especially if you don't have access to this kind of stuff elsewhere, you know? Like if you're by yourself or don't have many friends that play competitively, this is like a huge thing.
Yes. Well, I mean, honestly, the joke there too is like a lot of the times when I'm producing content, it's that content is me playing the games that I'm going to play. Like I don't play very much Moto at all. I play 2 leagues a week on stream, and then sometimes I'll play an extra league or 2. And that's legitimately the like solid average week for me. I play like 4 leagues, and usually it's almost never with the same deck. Like if I'm playing 2 leagues with the same deck, I have to have a very good reason to do so. And so like the content I produce is me actually testing most of the time. Like I do some goofing around and some like sub lists and stuff like that. But like I often like will go into a video and be like, all right, like leading up to the PT, for example, I played like 2 solid weeks of Pioneer. I had 4 different decks, across 4 different leagues. And I was like, all right, I'm trying this deck today. I'm just going to see how it feels, see how good it is. And I like spoke to my goals and to my thoughts on the deck going in, and then played the 5 matches. And at the end, I talked about things I liked, things I didn't like, and what I thought of the deck. And like literally it's just this like recorded bit of me legitimately testing that deck. Like I formulated a lot of my opinions on a lot of the decks I played based on literally those 5 matches I played on stream. Yeah. And so like even the matches I do play, I usually record them and produce them as content so that you can see my testing process. Like however successful or good you think I am or am not, like I'm showing you what I do to test, and like showing you that yes, I take this, like all of the things I say, very seriously. I demonstrate my discrete goals for all of my leagues going into, like, before it even starts. I have this whole bit where I'm just like talking about what my goals are, and then at the end I talk about how, like, did we meet those goals? Like, did we figure out how good I think this deck is? Was I disappointed in the matches we played? What decks, like, how do I think the deck lines up in general? What about decks we didn't play against? Do I think that those matter? Right? Like, I don't know how else to sell it to people that content is like the best way to get better. Like if you're saying, all right, I'm going to commit 2 hours a day to getting better at Magic. That's a lot, but I'm going to say I'm going to commit 2 hours a day to getting better at Magic. Consider like only playing Magic for like a third of that time or whatever, right? Like consider consuming content for the majority of that time, because listening to players that are better than you talk about the game, how they approach the game, and like watching them play out games allows you to not have to make the decisions yourself, which removes some amount of mental remove some of the mental strain on you to be like trying to make the right decisions. You get to listen to them and kind of have an argument with them to yourself about, what I've made that play, I don't know, like how did that play out? Was I right? Why was I wrong if I was wrong? You can kind of have that narrative, and that's what you're thinking about, and that is going to get you a lot better than just jamming that same deck yourself over and over and over again.
Yeah, so easy going on as autopilot. The next question is from James Harris. James asks, how do you balance having to perform at a high level multiple formats? I think it's especially hard with the SG Tour having a different format every week. So Drake, how do you do it? Because I don't really know yet. I'd like a hint.
A little insight. Well,
yeah, Captain, help me out.
It's the exact same thing we just talked about. It's content. I literally keep a finger on the pulse of all the formats, even standard. Like I consume standard content too, even though there's no standard opens anywhere on the SCG Tour. I'm consuming standard content because I like to keep my finger on the pulse on every single format, and it's easy to do through content. I can just consume content. How are high-level players talking about this format? How are high-level players, what are they saying is good? Why? Why do they think these decks are good? How has the format changed from before? And they talk about this kind of stuff in streams, in podcasts. And so if you just consume content, you can keep up. Like I may be testing for a modern tournament, and I can consume some Pioneer content and kind of just keep up a little bit with what's going on in the format that week. And so that way I can kind of hit the ground running when it comes time to play Pioneer the next week. It's like, all right, well, I know what was going on last week. I'm going to consume a bunch of content on Pioneer this week and start playing some games and just see where everything's at. And I get to start ahead of the pack. Like, because I focused on Modern last week, but did a little bit of Pioneer. And then like I still have enough of a rough idea of what's going on that I can formulate the rest of my opinions on the format via my own testing and further content this week, because I have this base to build on. So that is the best way I've found to balance performing at high levels in multiple formats, especially when you have like back-to-back opens that are different formats, is just like keep up with all of the relevant constructed formats in some capacity. You don't have to be an expert. Not everybody has to be the Brad Nelson, of standard, but like,
you really don't have to. He has a podcast. You can just let him tell you.
Yeah, exactly. Just like go consume some content that tells you what decks are doing well in standard and what decks are maybe doing less well. Like just literally that's it. Just know what decks are good and what decks are less good and why these people think they're good and less good. And then when it comes time for you to actually play that tournament, you're working with limited time, test the decks they said were good and see which ones you liked. And then test the decks they said weren't as good and try to confirm that opinion. These are all great discrete goals to have to play a league for, right? So it's easier to do if you work smarter instead of working harder. Instead of jamming hours, more and more hours of leagues and getting all the formats confused in your head because you're context switching so much. Just like, focus on what you need to focus on. That's the most pressing thing. And then just kind of keep a finger on the pulse with everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I was really bad that before. It's like, I'm just going to listen to like modern podcasts and I'm going to skip the other ones when like I'm not doing that. And then I think it kind of hurt from there. Like same for like limited. But I found that like, for the most part, listening to these podcasts, you can like glean nuggets of like insight and things, even that don't involve there. Where like I've been listening to like the first 40 minutes of the new Arena deck list before we record here on Thursday, and it's just Brian and Jerry talking about Teamer versus Blue White the whole time so far. And I have no intention of playing that matchup ever. Like I'm probably never going to play either side of that. But listening to their thought process and how they approach things can be applicable to like modern. We're like, okay, this is how they approach things, like breaking it down from a card by card basis and like how the cards interact. Maybe I need to do that same thing for Dimir Wurza versus Amulet Titan, right? And then I can apply that there. And it's kind of like what we talked about, I said like talking like with Dom and VTLCA helped a lot. You have Brian and Jerry who are insane at Magic doing that for you for free. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You don't get to butt in with a stupid comment every couple minutes and they tell you why you're wrong, like me. You just get to sit there and listen. So,
yeah, exactly. Just sit, listen, learn.
Yep. All right. Andrew Elliott, asks, any advice on an aspiring to become a grinder? So Andrew wants to know, he's starting to play events just like me. He's on Guild Pack Gaming. What's he need to know, Drake? What's the secret? What's the one trick that'll get us there? The clickbait title.
The clickbait title.
When I tweet that we have all the secrets to grinding in 24 hours when this episode goes live, I need to know that the secret's here so I can make that tweet. So what is it?
I mean, we've gone through most of the really hard hitting stuff that I think with like, just caring about your mental health, not over testing so you don't get burnt out. Like all those things are like really important, but like just specifically for someone who's coming from this spot where you're like, all right, I'm not somebody that, I don't play SCGs. Oh, I don't play GPs. Like, I don't know anybody. I'm just going to try to go dive in. And like, how do you succeed? My advice is find people that are better than you and listen. Like if you can hang out with them, that's cool. That's fine. But like, if you can just be around them, listen to how they talk, listen to like how they talk about how their matches played out. Like, are they telling bad beat stories? Probably not. Are they talking about maybe they messed a certain turn up and like what was their fundamental logic behind messing that turn up? Like what they think mattered and what actually mattered. Listen to that. Like that probably matters a lot. Like find people that are better than you and listen and learn. Don't talk. A lot of Magic players think they're way better than they are, and they want to jump into these conversations with these high level players and want to just, talk about like, oh, I know this, or like they want to make these like super extreme statements and these hyperboles and all this stuff just to like participate and feel like they're part of the conversation. It's like, stop. There's no need to overcompensate. Like, kind of, it's okay to just be in a conversation and just mostly listening. And hell, ask questions. Ask good questions. Ask like, how do you think that this matchup normally plays out? Like you said you lost, and you said this one thing mattered that like you didn't think was going to end up mattering, but did. Like, is that the first time this has come up, or have you played against this card ever before? And like maybe they'll answer you, maybe they won't, but like in general, like it's always better to just ask questions if you're legitimately trying to learn. I can't think of any grinder that I'm personally very close to that would fault you for that, or like would just completely ignore you or anything. Like, it's okay to just be around people just listening and then like ask a relevant question. So I think that is the best icing on the cake for all of the stuff we've talked about previously, especially regarding content, not jamming just to jam, mental health. Like all these things are so important. But if you are somebody that is aspiring to be a grinder playing a bunch of SCGs, or even like a PT grinder, and you want to make it to Worlds one day, like it's got to start with you listening to people that have played in Worlds, right? Listen to what it takes. And that's probably the next best piece of advice I can give you.
Yeah. Everyone has to ask those questions at some point, right? Just make sure you're actually listening, because people have definitely, I think we've all been there, right? Like regardless of your level, where someone asks you a question, you can tell the difference between them listening or looking for the answer they wanted, so.
There's a lot of comparing, like a lot of people like to try to compare results in Magic, and it's a big misnomer because the way you can tell, like, the medium from the good from the best is the way they talk about the game. If you can tell, that is the best metric, is listening to how they talk about the game. The people that know the least are often the loudest and most caustic. The people that know the most, you can tell because they talk about the game at a high level, and you can just tell the difference immediately. And that's something the Arena Decklist podcast will pick on that one. You can tell that these are world-class players because they are breaking down, the fundamentals of Magic, and they're talking about it at a higher level from, oh, this deck smushes that deck. It's just not even close. They just don't have a chance. Like, they're not saying that. Like, they are approaching things from just a completely different spot. And you can tell. Give them a listen. Here you go. More shilling for other podcasts. Am I good at this yet? But
exactly.
Yeah, so that's the best thing you need to learn how to do. And what you're going to learn out of this is you're going to learn how to talk about the game at a high level. Like, by listening to others, you're going to learn from what they are saying and what they are doing, how to talk about the game at a higher level. And that's going to make, players that are at a higher level more likely to interact with you because you're interacting at a high level, right? See where this is going? Like, this is how you get around. This is how you get closer to more players that are better than you, because you can now interact with them in a way that they understand that they're not going to push you away because, you're being extreme. You obviously don't know what you're talking about or whatever. Like, they're going to be like, oh, this person has been listening. This person's, knows what matters. They know how to talk about Magic. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And if anything, if you're just like listening, and even if you don't agree, it shows you the right way to think about things and approach it, right?
Exactly.
So
it shows you what you should be thinking about and what actually, what actually matters in various scenarios. So,
all right. Well, this is probably the most important question that we've tackled today. So I want only serious responses from this point on.
I am focused. I'm ready.
Basically, everyone messaged me, including when I tweeted, we already have this question down. Andrew Elliott from the last question. Maybe read, buddy. He even asked the question. Love you, Andrew. Everyone wants to know, why do you hate blue cheese? Why do you love ranch so much? And of course, this isn't like some analogy. We're talking about the actual like sauce, and you're dipping your wings in it. What's with your hatred of blue cheese? What are we at? Why are we doing this? And why is it so visceral? Why are you putting such hate out there for it?
Yeah, I think there's, once again, this is another thing where you have to be able to articulate your thoughts at a high level when you're talking about sauces like this. And so yeah, like, when it comes to blue cheese, I just think in this meta of eating wings,
the wing eating meta,
it's just unplayable. There's nothing redeemable about blue cheese in the slightest in any way. So here's the worst
Here's
part.
What I just learned is that you told me that
like
people
ranch?
who don't know speak in like hyperbole and said the deck's unplayable, and then I'm hearing you talking about blue cheese, and all I've heard is it's unplayable and you're an idiot for not knowing. I didn't even interrupt. I'm sorry. It's your show. You talk, my dad. I'm clearly not biased. Keep talking.
I think you're not understanding here. See, blue cheese, it's worse, right? Because it looks like ranch a little bit. It's like with this white sauce. Like, if you're in like dark lighting, you're gonna dip your wing and you bite into it expecting the heavenly goodness that is ranch, and then you like take a bite and you're like, "Bleh," and you just like find yourself like losing your lunch. It's like, well, that's really unfortunate, because blue cheese snuck in. It is literally the worst thing possible because it tries to mimic ranch in appearance, and it just does a bad job. And then it just sneaks in and it tastes awful and it's just miserable. It's chunky and terrible. There's just, like I said, there's nothing redeemable. That's just facts. Ranch can be made a variety of different ways. You got like chipotle ranch, you got honey ranch, you got sriracha ranch, you got jalapeno ranch, all these different spicy ranches that are great. You got different consistencies. You got house-made ranch. Just like, ranch is heavenly in all forms. I'm not here to ranch shame, but like, you have so much built-in variety, so much flexibility and versatility with ranch, and it's all delicious. But blue cheese, there is not a single iteration of blue cheese that looks, smells, or tastes good. And that's just that leads me to hate something. When you're pretending to be something great, but you're actually just like terrible. No, I don't like that, man. I don't mess with that. That's where the blue cheese hate comes from. That is why it's so visceral.
Listen, man, I love you. I'm not here to like judge on your dressing. That's not what I'm about. I just wanted to have the conversation. I'm just going to lay this down and we're going to move on. How do we know ranch didn't copy blue cheese? and just change it slightly and not, be that different. You're saying blue cheese is coming up on ranch on the appearance. I think ranch might be encroaching on blue cheese. And then I think ranch might be copying things like honey mustard, and that's where you get the Sriracha ranch. That's all I'm saying. I'm moving on. Drake, if someone wants to find you, where can they go to find your content?
I wasn't done talking about ranch. All right, fine. I'll DM you after. We'll hash it out on ranch.
Yeah, feel free to add Drake Sasser, but where
to
they
say
can do this?
about ranch. Boom. All right, fine. If you want to reach me for any, ranch related things, you want to talk positively about ranch, or you just want to gush a little bit about ranch, that's all fine. You can reach me on Twitter at viral_Drake, the word viral and the creature type Drake with an underscore in between. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me, I guess you could find me on Facebook if you want, although I don't usually interact as much on Facebook. And you can find me in the Team Nova Discord, Team Nova MTG.
What's Team Nova? I don't think I've heard of this.
It's a competitive SCG team that has the goals of making the Players Championship. We put 4 members in, Mason, last year. It's half the team.
That's a fourth of the Players Championship.
That's a quarter of the Players Championship. Yeah, we crushed.
That's 2/3 of what Lotus Box did.
And we have a Patreon.
Oh, really?
Patreon.com/Team Nova MTG.
What can I get from this Patreon?
And interact with me and talk about ranch. Huh?
What can I get from this? I can talk about ranch. I can get sideboard guides. I can get everything.
Sideboard guides. I can give you a ranch sideboard guide. You can get actual real sideboard guides if you want to win tournaments like Harlan Führer. You just get it all.
Wow.
It's like a cost of $3. $3.
What a steal. Yeah, after you subscribe to, of course, Constructive Criticism, you can then use that excess money that you're going to be saving from the deals at Oasis Games to go to Nova, sign up there for their Patreon, and you're saving all that money because now you're winning all these opens. You don't have to queue for the Classic. You're saving $40 bare minimum. That's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. So if you want to support me, twitch.tv/viraldrake, all one word on Twitch, or you can just you can search me on YouTube. Just search Drake Sasser, my full name. You can find me there and subscribe to my channel. Those are the best 2 ways to support me, support my content. And as always, if you want to reach me for any ranch-related things, you can do so there as well.
Yep. And then your Twitch as well, right?
Yeah, I said twitch.tv/viraldrake, all one word, no underscore like the Twitter.
Love it. If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Mason E. Clark. You can find me lurking around the Team Nova Discord as well. I'll be there to just reply with ranch or blue cheese, depending on up or down the thumb vote. You decide how that wants to be interpreted. That's up to you. And then you can also find me each and every week here on the show. Drake, you get to tune out for 35 seconds as I do some housekeeping stuff here. As I've mentioned for the last 2 weeks, new co-host starts in just under 4 weeks now, I believe, at the time of this recording. And so I'm very soon going to be messaging them to talk about what the new Patreon tiers are going to be. So I just want to let everyone know, as soon as that stuff is hashed out with them, I'm going to post all that stuff on the Patreon. And then when the time they come, we're just going to switch it over basically when it goes live. So once again, anything that's happened now and in the past from Spencer, we're going to fulfill all that stuff. So tokens, wristbands, the CC opens, it's like all that kind of stuff that was there before isn't going to go away. Just different things might be added to on top of it. So don't think you're going to be losing anything. It's really what extra stuff we can give you. And then keep an eye out on the store for Mason shirts. They're coming. Spencer really wants to make it happen.
Shirt. How do I get a Mason shirt? Do I just have to become a patron?
Yeah, you can become a patron. We're also going to sell them on the store. And I think we might be doing a cool charity thing with shirts soon. So keep an eye out for that.
Certainly will.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty exciting. Drake, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great to have you. Great to hear everything you had to say about all this stuff.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's so honorable to have my own podcast show. It feels really good. Thank you so much for having me. I really am flattered, and I really appreciate you taking your time to have me on and kind of talk about this aspect of the game.
Well, we'll be happy to have you on anytime you win an open. If you lose, unfortunately, obviously I'll have to invite the other person. You understand. You know how it goes.
Yeah, I understand. It's okay. Well, we'll get another trophy. I'm just going to get Harlan on my team. I'm going to get another trophy, and then we'll bring the whole squad on or something.
Behind the scenes secret sauce was I was going to message Harlan if you couldn't do it, and then you did, and then Harlan won. I was like, I mean, I love Drake, so I'm glad he came on, but also
we can just get Harlan on
clout.
I mean, like I said, Harlan would definitely echo a lot of the things I said in this show, so he'd be a quality ad for reinforcing the things I've already said.
You might have Harlan everyone though on deck selection stuff like earlier, and I'm glad we can just skip that whole process.
His deck selection is always somewhat
Immaculate. He's
questionable.
always winning, of course.
Yeah, I don't know about that. He always wins. I don't know about everybody else that plays his decks.
That's so true. Well, thank you everyone so much for listening, and we'll see you all next week.